It's 9:44 this morning. Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine surprised many in the international community, including some Ukrainians. But it's not without context. One expert based in Kyiv is now helping us understand why this war is happening, and more importantly, why now?
Now, joining us live from Poland, where she has fled for her safety, is Director of Fulbright Ukraine and the International Institute of Education's Kyiv office, Dr. Jessica Zahovich. Doctor, thank you so much for being with us. First of all, we have to ask you, how did you get out safely, and can you kind of describe what things are like there?
Absolutely. Good morning, California. I'm a native Californian. I've been studying, working, living, traveling to Ukraine since 2005. I first went with the Peace Corps. Right now, I'm director of Fulbright Ukraine, which is an international, US-based international exchange program for scholars, cultural practitioners, etc. We work very closely with the US Embassy, and when the order to evacuate the embassy went out on January 27, we pulled our American Fulbrighters and we came to Warsaw. Why Warsaw? Because Poland and Ukraine have a massive assistance effort underway. There is a humanitarian crisis that is only beginning to unfold. The war between Ukraine and Russia has been ongoing since 2013, 2014. Why? What started there? 2013, 2014, this week, there was a lot of life lost in the Maidan Revolution of Dignity. Maybe some of you remember that. This was the Ukrainian people fighting for free and fair elections against Russian-backed President Viktor Yanukovych. Since that time, as many of you probably know from other explainers you've been reading, Putin has seized territories to the east and also in Crimea to the south of what is now sovereign Ukraine. In the past few months, starting with October of 2021, President Biden delivered missiles to Ukraine, to a non-NATO country. Ukraine has a lot of aspirations to join NATO, and several other countries in Europe also delivered hard weapons. But because Ukraine is not in NATO, none of the NATO unified countries can send troops. So the weapons were delivered, but the troops were not. And a perfect storm has been created where there are not enough supplies for the Ukrainian military. There is a people's effort underway, volunteer militia. It's amazing the performance that the Ukrainian Army and volunteer units have managed to undergo in the last 48 hours. Today, right now, they are defending the city of Kyiv, and they are defending all of us in the west of Ukraine. All of Europe right now, including Warsaw, is filled with Ukrainian flags, efforts of solidarity. Our Fulbrighters, our American Fulbrighters, 15 of them, came to Warsaw and are right now packing boxes of food and supplies for individuals crossing the border. I've been in touch with Polish activists all day about women with children who are traveling alone because men cannot leave the country, men 18 to 60 right now because of martial law. We need the UN assistance. But again, I want to emphasize timing. Putin has unleashed an attack on Ukrainians as a people, as a nation, as an identity. There is absolutely no logic to what he is doing. In the Geneva Convention, he is right now committing massive war crimes. This will end in The Hague in a war tribunal. We need to act now. And US ambassador to the UN has been making statements that we need to consider his veto power right now because he's on the UN Security Council until March 1st.
Doctor, I just want to stop you just a little bit. Because I can hear in your voice, like you obviously know so much about this, but I can hear in your voice it's emotional for you as well because you're seeing this all firsthand. It's emotional.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I have written a book about Ukraine. It's called Superfluous Women, Feminism, Art, and Revolution in 21st Century Ukraine. So for 2 decades since the Orange Revolution, 2005, I have interviewed a lot of activists, and many of them working for, gender rights or human rights. And now I'm seeing that same community step up to the plate and protect their fellow citizens. So it is emotional. It's very personal, and I have family and friends in Ukraine, and I am Californian, and I reach out to California to say, take this seriously and think about what you can do. Amnesty International has a campaign right now internationally for assistance to Ukraine. Also, my organization that I work for, the Institute of International Education, just opened an emergency fund. We've seen high-profile U.S. businesses donate a lot of money to help students who are in the U.S. There are a lot of Ukrainians in your communities that you can assist, and they know best how to get that assistance in whatever form to their communities in Ukraine right now.
Doctor, we're putting up some of those links right now, so if anyone at home wants to donate, wants to help out, we're going to keep that up for just a few more seconds so they can take a screen grab, perhaps write it down. I wanted to ask you about the president of Ukraine, President Zelensky, and I believe there's a write-up in the New York Times this morning. Some columnist wrote that he's in over his head. All we pretty much know about this gentleman is that he was a comedian who was elected president, but right now he's really being cast, I would say, as a hero. I think he has a famous quote where the United States offered him a ride out. He said, I don't need a ride out, I need weapons. I want to stay and I want to fight. So how are people who are in Ukraine, who have essentially left the country, how are they viewing President Zelensky this morning?
I think a lot of people are staying in Ukraine. 40%, at least 40% before the first bombs dropped, when polls were taken, were planning to stay and defend in volunteer militia units. And part of Zelensky's performance, standing in the street in fatigues and saying, I'm going to defend Kyiv, was a campaign to get people to join those militias. And under martial law, none of the men of fighting age 18 to 60 can leave the country right now. They don't have the option to leave. So it's likely that as a leader, Zelensky is also providing a clear message on why he has kept that martial law in place, because families are being separated. There are people women and children and others who are leaving because they can, but there are also a lot of people who can't leave, who don't have that choice. So those, I think, who are departing right now, those who I've talked to, they're very much, this is all fresh for them. This has been in the last 3 days. And it's been a shock because President Zelensky did not have a clear preparatory strategy or public messaging campaign. I'm sure all of you have encountered media about the different embassies that evacuated not only the American, but embassies of lots of different nations. And Zelensky's response was to say that that was hysteria, that this shouldn't be happening, that the diplomats should stay. And I think he, in my personal opinion, as a citizen and also as a scholar, he's made a lot of missteps.
Dr. Zahovich, I'm so sorry. We are out of time, but we could talk to you all day long. I hope you will come back. You're a wealth of knowledge. Doctor, thank you so much for your time. We just ran out of time for us. Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
Thank you. Take care.